Welcome to the 30-Minute Hour. It's the personal development podcast for entrepreneurs who are looking to level up and become unstoppable. I'm your host, Eric Twiggs, your procrastination prevention partner. Joining me as always, you know him as the super CEO, the business strategist extraordinaire, and all-around good guy, Ted Fells.
Happy Monday. Happy Monday. It's good to be here.
Yeah, these Mondays are coming around faster and faster.
Faster and faster.
Oh, man. So, Ted, sometimes some people, they get stressed out on Monday, right? So one of the things they need to do is lean in and listen to this episode about how to perform at your best when under stress.
Okay.
That's our guest is going to help us with that today. He's hailing from Australia. All the way, he came a long way to help us with that, Ted.
That's right. We need some help. So we appreciate him coming in.
Absolutely. No, with the pandemic and just other life events, I think people are feeling more stress than in previous years. So this is a great episode to lean in. And even if you feel like you've got it all under control, there could be something coming down the road that you haven't thought about where you'll need to apply what Mark is going to talk about today.
Hang around anyway.
Hang around anyway. That's right.
That's right. Help. Get some help.
That's right. So as you can tell, this is not your everyday podcast. No, we do things a little different, Mark. I don't think we properly warned you about the fact that this is not your everyday podcast.
Different. A little different.
Slightly different. But you can watch us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. You can watch us live by just typing in the 30-Minute Hour in the search bar. You can also listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, any of those places that you like to listen to content. So this is the perfect time. We're going to go ahead and bring Mark on. We're going to introduce him. Again, he's going to be talking about how to perform at your best when under stress. So he's hailing from Australia. Like we previously said, he is a highly regarded specialist who assists multinational companies and their leaders in crisis awareness, cultural change, and high performance leadership. He's displayed an extraordinary ability to perform optimally under stressful scenarios through extensive experiences as a member of the Elite Paratroopers and other specialist roles in the Australian Army with the operational tours of East Timor. He was deployed to the Middle East as a team leader in the highly dangerous private security sector for 11 years in Iraq before returning to Australia to work as a senior risk consultant in the corporate world for 6 years. And he's currently a consultant that helps people to perform at an optimal level under high levels of stress. So please join me in welcoming to the 30-Minute Hour podcast, Mark Ashby.
Thank you, James. Thank you very much for that wonderful intro. Fantastic. Thanks. Great to be here with your listeners.
Yeah, welcome. And you've got a fascinating background that I just think what you've experienced probably prepares you for just about anything. But I really want, before we really dig into this, I want to give people like the backstory as far as how we got to this point. So I'm just curious, like what was it that inspired you to serve in the Australian Army?
I always had a bit of a fascination with the military as a kid. I actually grew up at the beach. Where I grew up, it's a real beach culture, and that was my life. Every single day, after school, before school, weekends, it's in the surf. My dad was a surfer, so that's your life where I grew up. And so for me to even look at the military for my part of Australia was a bit of a strange one. And but I always had that fascination with the military, especially the specialist units in the army. And I've always wanted to always had a bit of a thing of wanting to push myself in life, wondering whether I could actually even do that, as I knew how hard it would be, but I didn't know how hard it would be. And so off I went in my sort of mid-20s, and and put my name down and joined up, and the rest is history. And to be honest, it was probably the best thing that I've ever done with my professional career was starting off with the military.
So, and you mentioned the special forces. So I would have to imagine it's a lot like the Navy SEALs, the Green Berets in the United States, where you have a whole bunch of people that say they want to do it, but then when you get down to it, there's only 10 to 15% or so that actually make it. Is it something along those lines?
Yeah, the unit that I was in is sort of comparable, probably to your Rangers, a similar level of training, and of course, it's a sink or swim style unit. It's only the ones that are going to put everything in to it, and I don't mean 95%. You've got to put 100% in. You've got to leave nothing on the table to survive in that environment. A lot's expected of you. You've got to be as professional as you can every single day. You can't just have off days, and you're around other elite operators. Everyone's at that same level. So that's the nuts and bolts of it. It's a real sink or swim environment. It's not for everybody. I think a lot of people watch the movies and I think it's going to be this amazing life, and in reality, it's hard work. It's years and years of carrying heavy weights around and up in airplanes and parachuting out at crazy hours of the morning and blisters and chafing and injuries, and that's the reality of what the either the special forces or your specialized units are. It's going to be a tough road, but also you're going to have the most amazing time and experience if you make it. If you want to get the most out of it, you're going to get everything out of it.
Now, I'm just curious, especially looking at this special forces piece. Like, what was the most difficult part for you?
I think the biggest, just with the Army in general, it's just that mental preparation for it. You think you know what it's going to be, and it's real. Of course, the physicality is immense, and I probably underestimated that as well. I mean, I was already quite fit when I joined the Army because I've been surfing my whole life, but even the physical side of it was a bit of a shock, and but the mental side of it is the big one. Just really being mentally strong, and that's for us. I think for anybody who's in the whole defence force, doesn't matter what you do, whether you're Navy, Air Force or Army, it's going to be mentally tough. Being away from family members and operations and things, it's a hard graft.
Interesting. Yeah, I think most things, the majority of it is mental.
Yeah, I think yeah, absolutely agree with you. I think the majority of everything we do in life is in your head. You have to have that self-belief that you can do it, especially on operations in the Middle East. You almost had to have that, I wouldn't say like an arrogance, but you had to believe you were better. You had to believe you were better trained and better equipped and better mentally than your opposition, because you're not playing a game of football where you just, you either win or you lose, and then you go off after the game and you shake hands and you go home. If you lose, then maybe you may lose your life, or one of your friends may lose one of their legs. And this is the difference. You can't just go and reset. It's not just like, oh, how do we improve better next time? It's like, okay, how do we improve so we don't get somebody else killed next time? So that's that's the levels.
Yeah, I mean, I have the utmost respect for you guys, just because you're dealing with life and death scenarios. Ted and I, we're dealing with business, and we're trying to make a sale, but someone will die if things are done the wrong way. And I see Ted, I see you leaning forward.
Yeah, I mean, the stakes are so high on that, right? It's not a, it's kind of win or else on that side. And I've seen a lot of people that have served in different forces and then have started companies, and they seem to always excel because they can really kind of zero in on a mission because they've had like an ultimate mission. And so, like you said, sales and all of that's a big deal to us, but that's nothing like you're gonna the risk of your life or the lives of one of your colleagues.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of correlations though with business, and I think people don't really realize that there is. They may think, oh, it's so different to what business is, and there's so many correlations with just those little things like professionalism and how you treat your people, that team environment and working as that collective, I suppose, collective group. And it's really important, and just to be that at that level of professionalism, on a daily basis, which can be hard for people. It can be difficult to get up each day and have that same mindset to want to be at that really consistent level of performance. So, but there are a lot of correlations between what we did and the business world, 100%.
Sure. And so if you could go back in time and talk to that younger version of yourself who was just entering the Australian Army, based off of what you know now, what advice would you give to your younger self?
I think to listen to my gut instinct a bit more than what I probably did. A couple of decisions that I maybe made, whether they're in your personal life or professional life, that I wish I had have, maybe backed myself and rather than just maybe pleasing a couple other people, actually did it to please myself. And that's probably one of the things I wish I had have done a bit more, because it's served me well later on in my life now by backing my gut instinct, by following that gut feeling. So that's definitely one that I wished I could have done a little bit differently.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I think I just know for myself, the times where I've gone against my gut, it hasn't gone well.
Yeah.
Like when I have a feeling, I should do this one thing and I go against that, I've always regretted it. So I think that's great advice, and hopefully some of our entrepreneur listeners picked up on that. So I'm just curious, like what talk more about like the life experiences that led you to become this crisis and high performance specialist?
Look, I think it just naturally fell in, of being around that whole environment of crisis awareness and even the whole, I suppose, that peak performance. It's something I've always loved, being around high performers, people that they know what they want. They're not people that have to be told to be better. They're already at a reasonably good level, and it's about getting people who are already at a good level and actually making them at an extraordinary level. Really, you're really just enhancing what they actually are through self-belief and confidence, and it's something that I love to do. For me, it's easy to actually go to work or to turn up and actually have that real ability to do that. And it's the same with crisis awareness in a company. We've got so many issues these days, whether it's cyber attacks or, there's so many external issues there. And what we've come through with the pandemic, that real shift and pivot in business itself. And like I said, it's just something that I love to do, where I can really go into a business and have a bit of a bearing there, where I can actually change their mindset or actually help them out if they're in a bit of a bad spot. And I think I think it's important to love what you do. I think if you can do that every single day of your life, life's easy, isn't it? You just wake up and go do what you do. And that's what I love doing.
Good. Excellent. So I'm curious, you mentioned peak performance, and you also mentioned, like, if you look at your website, that you specialize in optimum performance. So what do you see as the difference between peak performance and optimum performance?
I think if we put it into even a sporting context, it's like an athlete that trains every day, and then they reach this absolute peak performance. But peak performance can also be quite brittle, because you're actually at your absolute fittest and you're going to put your absolute peak performance in. But can you sustain that every single day? And I think the answer really is no. Eventually you're going to break because it's almost impossible to do. But if you can be at that level where you're extremely fit and you're performing very, very well every single day, but it's really consistent throughout, and that's that real optimal, I suppose, performance. And that's what we tried to be at overseas on the teams, because we had to be at a very good level every single day. You can't let that ability, to be at that real, I suppose, level of clarity every single day slip, because that's what gets you killed. So you're never going to be at that peak level every day. It's virtually impossible to be like that. But that optimal level where you're actually very consistent, and that's where you want to be at. I think in every aspect of life, especially your professional life, you can be there. And so I think it's actually easier to achieve, because you're not putting so much pressure on yourself to be perfect. And being perfect is a very, very hard measure, to sort of keep that rolling every single day. So that's my sort of take on that.
And so I would imagine that optimal performance would allow you to adjust to those things that happen that aren't planned, right? If you're so focused on peak performance and something happens, like let's say even if you take it to like exercise and I'm going to run outside, if it's pouring down raining, it's kind of hard to achieve peak performance. But if you're focused on optimal performance, it seems like you could adjust and maybe do your best in that. Talk more about that.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. And it can be like where you're training, and you're going flat out. Your ability to like you said, to pivot or to shift when you're going flat out, it's actually harder because you're so directional. Where when you've backed off a tiny bit, you're still going to an amazing level. You have that ability then to actually look left and right, to be a little more, I suppose, lateral rather than straight ahead. And that's something that's really, really important. Like I said, whether it's in business or what we were doing overseas in the teams, because you have to be ready for what's coming. Rather than you're going flat out, you can't always see what's coming until it's actually too late. That moment has passed you by, and that's a very, very important message, I think, there.
Awesome. Yeah. So entrepreneurs is focus on that optimal performance. So you're the director and the founder of the Waterhole Leadership Foundation. So who is your ideal customer and how specifically do you help them?
Yeah, look, ideally, what I love doing is I love working with individuals from that exec level up in that high performance arena. That's what I actually really love to do. Like I said, somebody who's maybe in a bit of a bind, or they're just looking to get to that next level. And I love when you have somebody who really buys into that process, who wants to be part of that. I think it's always difficult to work with somebody who's got a bit of a negative mindset to start with. And I really try and avoid that if I can. I want to be with people who want to get better. But I also love working with teams, whether it's workshops or an ongoing process in that corporate environment, and helping them to actually understand that they are so much stronger as a collective group than just as an individual who wants to just be the star of that organization. And you're always going to be better in a team environment. And if you can trust those people around you, learn to trust each other, and give people a little bit of rope, give them a little bit of confidence to actually star in their roles rather than micromanaging. And I really love to go in there and help companies out with that. But that's what I really, really love to do.
Good. So what are some of the mindset issues? Are there any common things that you see, like entrepreneurs that you work with, some of the mindset traps or mindset issues to avoid that may help them to perform better under pressure?
We have it's an old saying, it's an old sniper saying. You may have heard of this saying called slow is smooth and smooth is fast. I don't know if you've heard of this saying before. And it's really about slowing yourself down in a crisis. And a crisis can be anything. It can be something that's affecting your productivity in the business. And it's about not making rash decisions. And that can really serve you well in all aspects of your life. Take a moment, take a breath for what you're doing. Think what I'm about to say next or what I'm about to do next. Is that going to be the right decision moving forward? Don't just base it on a real quick, irrational decision. Try and make it rational. And that's a real process that I really try and enforce. When I'm working with the clients, because it works. It can be the most simplest process, and whether it's like you're going to your front door of your house and it's pouring rain, and you're trying to get that key in the door as fast as you can, and you either drop it or snap it or whatever you do, you don't get it in first go. But you take your time, you slow down, and you put it in first go and turn that lock and you go to your house. And it's the same process with many aspects of life and business. You just take a breath and slow down. And that's how we operated for years overseas, to really, and like I said, it serves you so well. It can be anything where you come to a motor vehicle accident and it's absolute carnage. Instead of just rushing in there and endangering yourself and everybody else, take a moment to actually look what's going on around you. Look what other dangers there are, and where you can then actually be your most effective, helping out.
So, and that's one thing. I think Ted is excellent. And, Ted's the super CEO. He helps to slow me down at times. Sometimes we just want to do things. You just want to, okay, I'm gonna follow up with this. I'm gonna do, but Ted is good at kind of taking that step back. Yeah. So tell me, talk more about that. This sounds like, this is like what you do.
Yeah, I think you always have to, first assess the situation, then kind of strategize, come up with your plan, and then execute. Right. But you gotta assess first. You can't just go jump in there, right? Because you don't know what's behind those doors. And again, as in those type of situations that Mark has been in. You got one time to get it right, right? Because if you don't, you just jump in there, it's not gonna do well. And then also your experience that you have from other things that you've done, plays into that as well. So if you went in there one time and there was a bee's nest in there, and and you met some bees head on, that next time you're in a situation, maybe we might want to just wait a second before we go in there, or maybe try another route. So
absolutely. Now that's good stuff. Now, that's definitely something we all need to be thinking about. So what are some steps that people can take to perform at their best when they're feeling that stress?
Yeah, I think you've really got to put into practice what you're actually preaching. It's no good saying that you're going to, if you're looking in a corporate sphere and in that team environment, it's no good saying that you're going to do one thing and going back a few weeks later and doing the same thing again. You've really got to put that process into play. I think establishing any business, for me, it's whether they actually have those procedures in place or systems in place as well. And if they don't have them, trying to actually help them implement those systems so they can really become the best version of themselves. I know it's a bit of a cliche thing, but that's ultimately what it is. It's about being at that level where you're actually performing at your optimum level on a daily basis. And it's really quite simple. And I love taking, I think it's a bit of a skill I've developed over the years, is taking complex and turning it into simple. Really making things that everybody can understand. But so often I'll do talks and it's a really it's an area that people love to talk about, is actually turning that complex into simple. And I think we try to over complicate everything these days. We want to be too advanced and we want the words to be too big. But I think a lot of people are bluffing their case, thinking they understand what's going on, but they're actually not. And when you break it down with them in that little one-on-one environment, whether you're having a coffee with that person and you ask them, do you understand what I'm saying? And it's really, it's a great leveler. And communication is everything. You've got to communicate. Communication is key. For us overseas on the job, it was everything. It was our life. And I think a lot of people from below in that management sort of arena, they love nothing more than when the CEO or the COO or the CFOs communicate down the line with them, and it's nice and clear. And it's amazing the results you get from your staff when they know what their job is, they know what's going on with the company and the direction moving forward, and they work their bums off accordingly for you. They'll do anything for those leaders, those great leaders. Yeah.
Now I'm gonna stop you right there, because most organizations that I've been around have a communication problem. Like, communication is a big issue.
I'd say 90%.
Yeah. What steps can people take just to become a better communicator within their organization?
Look, it has to come from the top. It's no good the middle management being great communicators if it's not being relayed to the top. I had an experience where there was a company that had this great product, but what had happened is there was a breakdown of communication. It was in IT, and they'd lost. They'd made so much money through their sales, but then the amount of products that were being returned, it was basically counteracting the profit. And the whole point was, in the end, it was a breakdown of communication from that management up the top. That was where there was basically a product that needed to be rejigged differently, and no one was listening to the management. And it could have been fixed by the most simple solution. And when they worked out what it was actually just a communication problem, it actually went back to, you know, how it should have been. The sales went back to normal. So it's communication. Like I said, it's everything.
Yeah, I mean, I just try to get in the habit of my belief. And Ted, I certainly welcome your feedback on this as well, because this is something you deal with all the time. But I think it's just better to over communicate than under, and just don't assume anything. Don't assume people are, you know, understand the vision or understand what the target is for the day. I mean, Ted, can you talk to that, please?
Get you all the way there. I would much rather over communicate something to you and have you come to me and say, "Hey man, I'm not dumb." Then for me to not do it,
right,
and assume that you got it. And then, you know, what I need to happen doesn't happen. Like I think there's a way that you can communicate it, and you know, and not to, you know, sound a certain way. But I think it's, you know, I assume nothing on that, because, you know, it's like you start thinking, you know, we got Thanksgiving that's coming up on us, right? You know, it's food, and you're assuming that someone's bringing a certain dish, and you didn't confirm that. And then when that dish is not there, then you're like, whoa, what do you mean we don't have a turkey? I thought Mark was bringing the turkey. He said in that, you know, he's going to prepare it in a special Australian way, and he did, and now we're without a turkey. So yeah, I think that you be concise, and you make sure that everybody's on the same page, and everybody knows, you know, who's on, you know, supposed to be playing what position and what their responsibility is, and then, you know, you kind of take some of the thinking out of it.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, so I think this is a big takeaway from this episode. Just really focus on improving the level of communication within the organization. I think that just really helps to move forward. And I think when you get under pressure, it helps if everybody knows what the mission is and where we're trying to go, as opposed to if people are just kind of wandering aimlessly. Now, so Mark, I'm just curious, the pandemic, like, how did that impact your work?
Yeah, not too bad. I was also studying at the same time, so I was finishing off my master's degree. So I was doing that, and I've got that element of the business which is online as well. So I can put my whole training platform online. So not too bad for myself, actually. I mean, of course, it had a bit of an effect, like everybody, but not as catastrophic as some people, that's for sure. I think it's been a big wake up call for everybody.
So I'm curious, like, how did that impact your clients, though, as far as like the stress and just kind of some of the negative feelings? Did you notice an uptick in that?
I think it's a really good point. And I think for guys like myself, and a lot of my old teammates, we're so used to not having it nice conditions. We lived in shipping containers overseas in the first few years, sometimes 6 of us in a shipping container on bunks with no TV, terrible internet. You know, we didn't have in those days Zoom or Skype. They weren't even invented. This is back in the start of the war. And it was filthy and dusty and stinking hot or freezing cold. You know, we're getting bombed every night. So for us, it's like when we came to this pandemic, we were just like, oh yeah, this is whatever. Do you mean we've got to stay home and make a coffee in my kitchen or whatever? So for us, it was actually very, very easy. But I think for the average person, they really struggled because they're not used to it. They're not used to being told you can't leave the confines of your house. You can't go down to your local shopping center, or you can only go to your local supermarket at certain times of the day, and that's it. And my lovely partner, she's a registered nurse, so for her level of work went through the roof. You know, she didn't stop. She actually went crazy with that. And but I think for the average person who are used to maybe getting on the train each day or the bus into the city, I think it would have affected them greatly. And I think the mental health side of it has probably been exposed for what it really is. And this is why they're so short now on psychologists and psychiatrists, especially in Australia, because so many people having mental health problems. I think it was a big effect. Yeah.
Interesting. So do you subscribe to the latest thing that's out there where you can kind of make yourself mentally, the little things you can do to make yourself more mentally tough. Like there's a lot of people now that are taking cold showers. They're getting in the habit because it tells you that you've done something really hard for that day. There are a lot of people saying that this helps you to become more mentally tough. Are there any other little hacks? And Ted's giving me like a crazy look, but are there any other like little hacks like that people can do to make themselves?
I don't want that. I don't want that hack. That cold shower. I want no part of that.
Yeah, I've done that. Yeah, no, not into those. Oh, far out. Look, I just think maybe having a bit of structure. I think structure is a good thing. When I was doing my university work, I just made myself do it. Each day I had my little goals of what I needed to do, how many words I needed to write that day, and having a little bit of pride in what you're doing. Look, I think we're all wired so differently, Eric. I think we really are. You know, we're some people can really adjust and pivot quite easily, and others can't. And I think maybe also sometimes asking for help. If you've got the right people around you, really use those people. Really utilize them. If you've got people around you who have their own little versions, as I love to say, individual brilliance, then really ask those people. Don't be afraid to ask for help sometimes, and don't take things on that are beyond what your own speciality, what your own knowledge sort of sphere is. And like when I was setting up my business, I came from that military background, not a corporate background, so I needed that help to really become the best version of the business that I could be. So I got the right help. And don't try and take everything on your own. I think it's a really, really good bit of advice that I was always given as well. You've got to back yourself 100%, but it helps when you've got the right sort of crew around you as well to give you that assistance.
And that kind of goes against how some of the entrepreneurs are wired, right? You got to this point as an entrepreneur by doing it yourself and making it happen and finding a way and figuring it out. So sometimes that creates a perception that asking for help is a sign of weakness. But what you're saying is that that's an ultimate sign of strength.
Yeah, I think it is. I think, especially with the mental health side of things, many of my friends that never reached out for help, they try to do it all on their own, like you just said, in life. And unfortunately, a lot of those guys aren't with us anymore because they just couldn't get through it. They couldn't get past it. And a lot of the guys came home with of course, issues from the war, but also personal issues, with marriages breaking down and not seeing their children. And I think it had a massive effect on everybody. And that's why we had so many, unfortunately, of my good friends that, lost, took their lives. And I think sometimes you've got to, there's nothing wrong with getting that little bit of help. I did it myself. My lovely partner, she told me, just go and have a chat with somebody. And it was the best thing I ever did. I got this great guy that I got to go and have a few sessions with and just to really talk about my life and what I'd been through and what my dreams were in life as well, my aspirations. And it was a really great thing that I did, to be honest.
So talk more about, when you made the transition to being a consultant, like how did you seek out help? You said, okay, I want to help people to become, perform better under pressure. I want to be a consultant. Like, how did you seek out help to successfully transition to the business world?
Yeah, I had a friend. I was working in the corporate world for a few years as a sort of like a senior risk consultant, doing a bit of board advising as well there, and I really loved it. It was mainly in the media, big media circles in Australia. And it was one of the execs that had a chat to me one day, and he said, "Mate, you should do this for yourself, Mark. You've got your big background, and I think you can really help people." And this friend of mine that had the business, he sort of said to me, "Look, the biggest mistake I made was trying to do it all on my own with our background." So I got put in touch with a lovely lady in Australia. Her name's Mary Henderson. She's like a brand specialist, and one of these people that you can't just work with. She's got to decide if she thinks you're worth working with. You've got to almost interview with her because she's so successful, and she never worked with somebody like me before. So she decided to take me on, and we've never looked back. And her and I are great friends now. And she's just helped me with my just the professional website and all my artwork and the way that my systems are. So I've got a nice, it's all systemized now with my lessons, and I've got a big range of lessons now that I can tailor and that I can pluck from to suit the business that I'm going to. And so that was definitely the best thing I ever did, was to work with her and just understand what I was getting myself into. And she really gave me that confidence to believe myself and how to go about, I suppose, sourcing clients and doing, podcasts with great gentlemen like yourself, and doing master classes and talks, and I'm on LinkedIn regularly, posting on LinkedIn as well. So it was just great advice for me to take that on, and it worked out well.
Awesome. So, Ted and I, we notice a pattern. Like everybody who's successful that comes on here, they always mention some type of mentor, some type of coach, some type of outside person that's got them to that level. I mean, I don't think that's a coincidence. So
I totally agree with that. Yeah, and I was very lucky. I had a great, I had a US general overseas that I became good friends with when I was in Iraq, and he wasn't like a general. He was like, someone you could really go and talk to and have a coffee with and throw sort of those little, any questions of life around. And he was a great inspiration to me as well. And having him and then having her in that corporate setting back in Australia, it was just, unbelievable. And like you said, the best thing I ever did.
Great. So please share with us like your most memorable success story. One of the clients you've helped that, you took them through, him or her, through your framework, and they came out on the other side, taken to the next level.
Yeah, I had a lady who was a pretty newly appointed COO, and Asian background, so Chinese background, and her boss was essentially Chinese as well. So in that culture, you're going to have a lot of different, I suppose, directions to what you would normally have, where you've got a very male dominated environment from many generations, and with women coming into those senior roles, it's tough for them. And she was really struggling with her confidence and struggling with her staff, a lot of male directors underneath her giving her a hard time, and she just didn't believe in herself. And it was probably one of my greatest feelings, because I was able to really turn her mindset around using my system, but also just spending time with her and talking to her one-on-one, and really making her believe that she belonged there. She was there because she was so good at what she did. She was very bright, and making her understand you are the boss here. These people need to start respecting you, and if they don't respect you, you've got to then put your foot down here and actually let them know that you actually are the boss. And it's such a double-edged sword, where you want to be respectful to your people and you want the respect back. But if you're not getting the respect, then something has to change. And if you've got to remove certain people in order to get that change, then that's the tough decision you've got to make. And I singled out a couple of people that were giving her a hard time, and both of them, unbelievably, I found out were related to her. And they'd been brought into the business because of that I suppose that culture. And she actually decided in herself. We had some tough conversations, her and I, and I'm brutally honest like that. I don't care if you're the CEO, if you're the janitor. I'm going to talk to you exactly the same. I'm going to be super respectful to you. I'm going to listen to you. If it needs to be a hard conversation, I'm going to tell you the truth. And I told her some hard truths, and there's a lot of tears from her. But she came out the other side, and she actually removed one of those relatives, which caused a bit of a stir in her family. But looking back, and she says to me now, it was the best thing that she ever did, because it allowed her to remove that entity, to bring somebody else in who actually really wanted to be there, and to really start having respect in the boardroom. I mean, it came to a point where I sat in on one of their boardroom meetings, and it was just on for young and old. And I just raised my voice and just said, "Shut up! Just stop! Just stop! Listen to you all, like you carry on like children. She's the chairwoman of this board. This is what she's saying, and you've got to start listening to each other. And otherwise, your company, there was a big organization. They dealt in crypto and shares and things, trading, and they're a big organization, multi-million-dollar company. And I said, your company's being affected by your profits, and what's going to happen in the end is you'll start losing your jobs. I said, I won't lose mine, but you're going to lose yours. And it was a real tough one. That one wasn't your everyday cookie cutter style, I suppose, coaching or mentoring environment. It was a challenging one, but it was a great result in the end, and she did very, very well, and she's doing well now. So yeah, that was a good one.
That's awesome. I mean, see, a lot, especially when you're working with CEOs, they don't have a lot of people who are just going to tell them the brutal truth.
That's right. and it goes one or two ways. They either totally agree with you, or they're totally shocked, or they're in total denial. And but that's my skill is that. My skill is being able to really get in there and actually really understand someone and almost, you know, not I'm not going to say become close to them, but I can really, really understand who they are and really and make them understand that I'm there to help them. That's what I love to do.
Absolutely. Ted?
No, yeah, I think you know those CEOs. I mean, the way that we think, like we have everything, you know, on the table, you know, and then when you have somebody that's, you know, working for you or as a part of your organization, you know, whether it works or not. I mean, if it doesn't work, they can just go get another job, right? You're stuck with whatever that decision is. It kind of reminds me of someone mentioned and said, you know, who has the most to sacrifice in the kind of the whole breakfast environment? Is it the chicken or the pig? You know, that Mark, you laugh. I think you know what that means, right? That chicken just lays some eggs, right? That pig lays down his life. And so
The pig is all in.
Pig is Eric. The pig is totally in, right? So when you come in here saying, "Oh yeah, this is what we're going to do, and we need to make this change," and you're not hearing this, and you're not hearing me, and you got to believe in this, and it doesn't work, and then they're like, "I'm sorry, it was great working here. You know, stay in touch," and you're left with all the pieces. You know, that pig, they're making bacon and sausage, and pepperoni out of you. So yeah, it's you know, because I remember one time I had an advisor one time saying that I wasn't, you know, from talking to some members of my staff, this was years ago, said that I wasn't open to feedback. I said, no, I'm open to feedback. You can share whatever you want to share and make recommendations, but that doesn't mean I have to do it, because I'm the one that's going to have to live with it. Now, if I say to you, Eric, if this doesn't work, are you going to work for me for free for the rest of the year? Because I may not be able to pay you. Do you believe in this decision that much? Eric, you would say,
no.
That's right. You think, no, maybe we ought to try it your way. Maybe we ought to try it your way. You know, you don't believe it that much. But so I'm open for feedback, but you just gotta, you know, you still at the end, you gotta make that decision because you gotta live with it.
Mm.
But no, it's, you know, I think it's valuable to have somebody like a Mark who's going to shoot straight with you, and you can trust what he's saying is going to help you to move forward. So, what about books that you've read? Like, what are some books that you've read, Mark, that have really shaped the way you think and helps you to take better actions?
I read a book a little while ago by two authors, Steve Chandler and Rich Lifkin. It's called the Prosperous Coach, and I really enjoyed it. I mean, I've read quite a few leadership books. I found so many of them are just the same. Leadership, whether it's all their mentoring books or get better books, in general. Yeah. And so many of them, they're just the same stuff being chewed out by people that have really, I suppose, done nothing unique in their life. And I kind of find it hard to listen to somebody who's maybe done a book and they've worked 5 years in corporate or something, or 5 years in any sector, and they're trying to teach people about leadership and about being that best version of yourself and try and mentor them. I just kind of find it hard to grasp. But I think because you only become unique and you only get experience through years and years of hard work and sacrifice and making mistakes and learning from your mistakes and becoming a better version of yourself. And I was always told that, I suppose, to be unique, remain unique at any cost. Mark, don't change who you are. And I know I'm quite unique in my sphere because of my background. But that book they wrote, I thought was a good one. They're two coaches. One, I think Rich is he's English, and I think Steve's an American. And it's just a really, really great book. Some great messages about working hard and about, that doesn't come overnight. Success takes time. It's going to be a couple of years for any entrepreneur or coach until they start, making money. You're going to get a lot more no's at the start than you are yeses. And these are a lot of the things that you've really got. It's the reality. It's not this. I think with COVID, a lot of people thought, I'm going to be a high performance coach and I'm going to make $1 million in 6 months. And a good friend of mine in America, a chap named John Knotts, he's a coach down in Texas, very successful guy. And he said that I think that the percentage was something like 80% of those people that went out on their own have failed and gone back into their old jobs. Yeah. Because they've realized how tough it is and how they're not extraordinary in their field. They're just like 80% of that field. They're not in that sort of 20% of uniqueness and who are doing well out of it. So, yeah, but I love that book. I've read it a couple of times. That's how good I thought it was.
Yeah, The Prosperous Coach.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and I agree with you on the books. I do think you have a small percentage of authors who are genuine thought leaders.
Yes.
They're genuinely thought leaders. The Stephen Coveys, those. But then you've got a big group that are thought repeaters.
Yeah. I've been asked to do a book many, many times, and if I do a book, I want it to be the right one. I want to love it myself, and you want other people to love it and take something from it, rather than just go, this is just another cookie cutter, leadership or high performance coaching, book.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things that frustrated me and motivated me to write my book, because all the stuff I was seeing on the topic of procrastination was the same stuff. Oh, you got to wake up early. Don't check your email before this time, and blah, 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 blah.
Oh, and these gigantic words and these gigantic pie charts. And I was just like, I just can't deal with that. For me, it's about taking complex and turning it into simple, not making something simple and turning it into making it complex and hard to understand. That's just my ideas anyway. That's how I think.
Yep. What's that? I mean, there's a popular military phrase that complexity is the enemy of execution, right?
There you go. Yeah, I mean, there's so many great military phrases out there that really actually and they work because they've been tested. They've been tested in the harshest environments on earth. That's why they work.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Well, we're coming down to Ted's favorite part of the show. It's called Write This Down. As you can see him shaking his head. This is where we each go around and we state at least one idea or more from the show that we want our followers to write down so they can level up. So, Mark, you're the guest of honor. What should the people write down based on this episode?
Well, I think just be prepared if you go out as an entrepreneur to work harder than what you did in your last job. You're gonna have to be prepared to work hard, and I know that now from experience that nothing prepares you for it. How hard you have to work. You've got to work harder than the next person. That first year or two to be successful, and don't give up. You're going to get your little drawbacks, your knockbacks, but if you want to be successful, to keep going. Keep getting up and keep doing what you're doing, and trust your process, and just have that self-belief. And that's my message. If you want it bad enough, and you're good at what you do, you understand what you're good at, then follow that dream. Don't be scared to follow it, but work hard for it.
Work hard for it. Awesome. All right, Ted.
Yeah, I think it's a kind of simple statement. It's your journey is your journey. Right? People can tell you it's going to take X amount of time. It may not for you. It may take longer. It may take a shorter amount of time. The process. Everybody. There's some people out there that go. They could just go to the store and just meet somebody that's a key contact, and now their company just takes off. Right, and then there's another person that met 1 million people, and it hasn't taken off yet. But the thing is, your journey is your journey. And that's why I think you have to be in it more. I think you said something earlier, Mark, about, the whole thing about if you're doing something that you love to do, right? It doesn't seem like work. I think that's what you want. If you're totally in it and you're not in it for money only, then you just enjoy the journey, the ups and downs that come with it. But I think you really can appreciate it though more when it's your journey. And that's why I think it goes back to that whole thing of someone coming to you and they want to offer their feedback on your journey, and want you just to accept it, take it, because that's what they feel and think. When they may not have been along the ride with you any amount of time and just joined your company, a couple months ago, and they want you to, just stop everything you're doing and implement something that they've presented. So, it's on, you're always employee number one. So you were there in the beginning in most cases, and unless you acquired someone's company, but in most cases you were, you was in it by yourself to start, and you have to, be able to live with whatever decisions you make.
No, that's great points. Great points. So for me, for write this down, we're talking about how do you perform at your best when you're under stress. I think this is the key thing. Like you have to factor failure into your success plan, right? You have to have an idea going in, especially if you're starting a business, that there's going to be some setbacks and failures. And I think you'll be more positioned to achieve optimal performance. Because if you're just focused on peak performance and everything being great all the time, and then all of a sudden, when that setback happens, you lose that key person, it's a gut punch that's hard to recover from. We've all experienced that gut punch at some point, But I think you have to anticipate. You have to factor that there's going to be failures, and when you kind of anticipate it, you can perform at an optimal level because you know that, okay, now it's time for me to adapt and to pivot and then adjust. So that's my, write this down. Factor failure into your success plan.
Yeah, good point.
All right, man. I'm telling you what.
Very, very good. Very good
Thank
point.
you. Yeah, man. Our guest just outstanding. Mark, this is another one. This is one of those shows. I have like a whole other thing of questions I could ask you. Like we could be on here another hour. I'm really fascinated by this topic and what you're bringing to the table. But I know you got things to do. So
no, it's one of those things, and you're right. You can talk about this stuff for hours. You really can, and you can just go off on little red herrings, and you go off on little directions and wrap down rabbit holes with it because it's so important, and there's so much great advice, even between the three of us with our own careers, and what you've done. And I just love authentic people. I think it's so many people want to lose that side of themselves in this day and age to please others, and rather than just being yourself. And it was a great tip that I was told: just be yourself, Mark. Never change who you are. Be authentic, and it was great advice. And I'll never change. That's who I am.
Yep,
that's great.
Absolutely. So how can the people connect with you?
It's just my website is very simple. It's just markashbyconsulting.com. And my email address straight to me is mark@markashbyconsulting.com, and that's Mark with a K. And like I said, I'm quite prevalent on LinkedIn as well. I sort of generally do posts on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday on LinkedIn, and all my details are on my website. So yeah, that's the easiest way to get in touch with me, and I'd love to hear from some of your listeners.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you once again to Mark Ashby, coming at us all the way from Australia. Don't forget to share the show. Make sure you share the show. Don't keep us a secret.
Share the show.
That's right. Share the show. So you heard it twice. Where you hear something more than one time, that's a sign that you have to do it, right? So you just heard it twice. So,
but we like to thank all those that have been sharing the show.
Absolutely.
We see some amazing growth in the show. So we appreciate all those that have been listening and sharing and commenting. And that keeps us going. So we appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. Please continue to share the show and listen. And we hope we continue to bring you value. I mean, there was just all kinds of, this is, again, another one of those episodes. You just need to hit the rewind button and go back and listen to some of the points that Mark made. And he's not just somebody that's shooting theory at you. I mean, he's gotten this from real world life and death experiences where failure is not an option. So you definitely want to go back and apply the points that he made today to your business and to your life. So again, we want to thank Mark Ashby for everything he shared. Don't forget to share the show. Don't forget to listen to us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all those other great places. So that's our time for this week on the 30 Minute Hour podcast. And until next time, have a great one.